And good morning. We are here at 9 a.m. on May 5th for another bargaining session with Jeffco Public Schools and Jespa. And as has been customary, let's do some introductions since we're live streaming, and then we'll jump into talking about any agenda modifications and work through. I know we are scheduled from 9 until 1 today, knowing that we hopefully we'll make some progress. So having said that, I'm going to just do my quick introduction and I'll pass it on to Matt to my right. Phil Bedford, I am Executive Director of Employee Relations.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Polero, Chief Student Success Officer.
Deneen Cusack, Director of Employee Relations. Good morning.
Good morning. Jeff Pearson, Executive Director for the Department of School Safety.
Jennifer Munoz, Secretary, Jespa Vice President, and JCEA President.
John Duran, Maintenance Association President.
Darcy Hassler, Paraprofessional, and I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the people that were here last month in the audience, including members of our Jespa community, ESPs from Denver Public Schools, Daytop, and EFT, Coloradans for the Common Good, teachers, JCEA President Brooke, and at least one CEA member. Since it was held in the evening, we got to have lots of community support besides our members, and I'd like to acknowledge that they were here. Obviously, during the workday on the short notice for this, it's going to be less.
Xander Kashub, Jespa President.
Vicky Flores, Jespa Staff.
Trevor Byrne, Bus Driver and JCTA President.
Sarah Smith, Preschool Teacher, President of JCPK.
Jessica Goodkin, Director of Special Education.
Good morning, Katie Jeter, Director of Resources for Food Service.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So looking at our agenda and obviously tentative, any modifications we want to make to the sequence of things, knowing that we're ready to present our counter proposal, anything that you would like to have changed?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Take it away.
Yes. All right, so we're going to take a little transition here. I'm going to run the slideshow for Matt, and Matt's going to take it away with our district counter proposal for compensation.
All right. Give Phil a minute to get our presentation set here. Okay. So first and foremost, we just want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. We know this was an unscheduled session. Over the last few days, we've used that time to study your proposal further, and we're prepared today to present a new offer to you that we hope and believes in closer alignment with the things that you express that are important to you. But before we get into those details, however, if you'll just go to the next slide, we want to just take some time to give you a clear overview of the district's proposed budget, and we'll share how changes in the inflation rate can affect the amount of money available for each student's education. We'll also show you some historical data that compares inflation rates to changes in compensation for district employees. And finally, we'll give you a summary of what's been proposed so far. And all of this is really just in an honest effort to be transparent with you and help ground everyone in how we arrived at this current offer. Any questions on the agenda before we go to the next slide? Okay. So starting with the district's proposed budget, on May 3rd, 2023, our proposed budget included $906 million in revenue. This represents a 5.9% year-over-year increase compared to the fiscal year 23 budget. In addition, the district expects to receive an additional $2.6 million from the additional buy down of the BS factor to $180 million and about $3.5 million in additional one-time at-risk funding. And so these changes will add about $5.1 million to our bottom line, or the $906 million. Next slide. So inflation-based adjustments to PPR. So I'll do my best to explain this slide and channel my inner CFO here, but this graph shows the consumer price inflation for the metro area. The purple line shows actual inflation, while the dotted green line shows forecasted inflation from the state. And I want to be clear that the forecast is from the state, not from the district. The consumer price inflation is important because it affects the amount of funding the district will receive, and PPR increases by a percent match the prior calendar year's consumer price inflation. So in other words, when we're experiencing inflation in real time, it's not until the following fiscal year that the district receives funding to offset the increase for inflation we're experiencing today. The revenue simply lags behind real time is probably the easiest way to think about that. And although the per pupil revenue is increasing by 9.4% that you can see here due to that inflation and the budget stabilization factor buy down, our student count has decreased significantly. And so as a result, what you'll experience, or what we're experiencing, is that our revenue won't go up by the same percentage as the PPR increase, because these two factors are essentially moving in opposite directions, if that makes sense. Next slide. All right, so comparing inflation to compensation. So this graph compares inflation to JCEA and Jespa compensation increases over the last 5 years. And so the purple line represents the inflation adjustment to per pupil revenue. The orange represents JCEA and the green represents Jespa increases. So what you can see is that the compensation increases for both JCEA and Jespa have exceeded or outpaced the district's inflationary revenue for the past few years. And so what happens when compensation grows faster than revenue over time, it creates a need for the district to reduce expenses to balance the budget. Otherwise, we risk creating a budget deficit because we're spending more than we can afford. And so given our current circumstances, we're having to reduce upward to 220 FTE from the fiscal year 23 budget to the fiscal year 24 budget to more closely align with expenses and revenue. And we share this data with you not only because it shows and recognizes the value and hard work and dedication of our employees, but it also highlights the financial pressures and reality faced by the district. And equally important, we thought this data could be helpful to both of us in finding a solution that is sustainable as we work together through this process. Next slide. Okay, so moving into our original agreement, the district and Jespa had mutually agreed to the following compensation increases in 23-24. So each eligible employee will receive a step and a $1 per cell cost of living adjustment. That's what was agreed upon last year, which amounts to a total increase of $8.4 million to the budget. If you go to the next slide. So moving into negotiations this year, the district responded to your initial proposal with an initial offer that provided $10 million in increases, which is $1.6 million more than the existing agreement. And that included each eligible employee receiving a step, $1 per cell, or the equivalent of $1 per cell in the form of a 4% COLA percentage, with an additional 4% COLA for high vacancy and campus supervisors, and a $10 per employee per month employer contribution to health insurance. And so based on our last conversation, we heard that you do not want a percentage COLA, that you want a flat dollar amount. We also heard that you do not want us to differentiate for high vacancy positions and for campus supervisors for the reasons that you expressed. And we understand that you're concerned about premium increases for employees. And so our new offer, we believe, reflects these interests. So we'll go through that now. So what we did here is we were able to take the 4% COLA for high vacancy and campus supervisors previously offered and slightly more money and converted it into a flat dollar amount in the form of a COLA that benefits all employees and we add an additional $10 per month employer contribution to health insurance, which totals $20 per employee per month. And we believe that this additional money will help offset some of the premiums that incurred. And we also understand that with this increase, some employees may experience no increase and/or see no premium cost for their coverage outside of the deductibles that they would pay depending on the type of plan. So overall, this offer increased the budget by $11.1 million and is an additional $1.1 million higher than our last offer. And so that's where we're at today. So I'll just give you a second to look over that slide before we move on to the cost analysis we completed on your offers. Okay, if you'll move on. So like I said, we did take the time to cost out your initial proposal as well as your most recent offer. And we estimated your initial proposal to be an increase of about $32.9 million, which included the step, the $3 cost of living adjustment per cell, plus the benefits. Next slide. And we estimate your recent proposal, which introduced a new wage scale, to cost the district approximately $46.1 million. And while all that to say, while we're appreciative of the work that has been done so far, the cost analysis, we've completed this past week has caused us to be, quite frank, somewhat concerned and worried because of how far apart we still see ourselves from the different offers and requests that have been put out there so far. And that said, we do hope that the new offer demonstrates our commitment to getting in line with the things that you said were most important to you in terms of benefits and a flat dollar rate as opposed to a percentage COLA and taking out the differentiated pay for the high vacancy and campus supervisors positions that we initially offered. And we also, want to take some time for you all to process what we've put out here. We would propose maybe taking a break so that you can put together your questions for us, unless you have some immediate questions right now. And we'd be happy to follow up with you directly. Yeah, and we'll email you this presentation. Any initial questions? Yeah. Yeah. Can you read the assumptions? Would you like me to read them out loud? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other slides that you'd like us to take a look at, or would you like us to send those over and then have some additional conversation?
No, if you could just send that to us, that would be great.
Okay.
And I think we don't have any questions, so we would love to, if you could just send that to us, we'd love to move on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I think at this point, since we've sent our proposal to you, I think a break is in order from the standpoint that we have preparation work for District Article 6 counter proposal on compensation. We got your document last evening and need to be able to review it and come back to the table. So it'll take a little while, but we want to be able to do that and take the time.
Yeah, sorry that didn't get to you in time to prep. I think we're prepared to do Article 4. So if we could do that before a break, just so you have both.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. That's great. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so this is Jespa's counter to Article 4. Gotta scroll. Okay, so in Article 411, before I get into this, I just wanted to kind of reiterate the fact that some of the changes weren't tracked in this, so it's a little difficult. So bear with me here. Some of these changes it's hard to read some of this stuff. Okay, so let's see here. That one. Okay, so in 412, because I don't believe there were any changes in 411. In 412, we struck except for pooled positions and or positions assigned by district departments. And that was because we added that into 414. So we added that into 414, and we also added additional language to say, in addition to the positions posted per 412. So struck the pooled positions language from 412, added that to 414. Okay, continuing on. So in 4.2, this has been a back and forth for a few sessions now, and you, as the district, kind of added this new language, this paragraph here. And as we were digging into this, we tried to figure out what we could counter with, and we came to the conclusion that we think this added language is actually worse than what was in our contract in the beginning. So we would like to just strike all of that and add the original language back. So 421 through 425 is the original contract language, except for the addition of or demote in 421 after promote. Moving on. In 414, we added language to say, this is basically about hiring selection committees. So selection committees made up of 3 members, one of which is a Jespa employee provided by Article 1.7. And then we added, and who do not have a conflict of interest, because we are concerned at the how these committees could potentially be made up, and it could potentially hurt and be bad if there is a conflict of interest. Moving on to 444. I believe, we re-added
This was an interesting spot. Okay, so yeah, we added applicants' overall work history, relevant experience, and added measured by years of service. And then down in letter D, this is also something we've been back and forth with for a few sessions now, about reference checks. So I believe you all added the language reference check conducted by the hiring manager. We left that in, but we added with consent from the candidate. And all references must be asked the same questions and answers must be documented. Excuse me. In 445, towards the bottom, we added, should the hiring manager reject the recommendation, the rejection reason will be documented and subject to review by HR and Jespa. We are going back and forth with this article based on, if the hiring manager has this authority to override the committee, we want accountability there. In 446, we've been back and forth with meaningful, measurable, what these words mean, and we decided to add the word to put the words compelling in there, seeing as how it's been. I think you all added that into another I think Article 6 or something about outsourcing, I think is where you added that language. So we're using the words compelling here too. We think that those are good words. Okay, probationary period. Another section we've been back and forth on a lot. We left in 90 working days with a kind of a condition down at the bottom here. So we re-added language that says the district must provide orientation. And we kind of argued this back and forth a while. The district's argument is that it's a lot of work to put on these orientation sessions. And okay, sure. So we added kind of a timeline, I guess, not a timeline, but what's the word? We wanted twice monthly orientation, and we believe that's doable. We know that this work is hard for our departments to do. It kind of takes away a lot of their resources in order to put these orientations on and to do this. So we believe that twice monthly is doable. And I'm just going to read the whole language for people who are watching. So the district must provide paid in-person new employee orientation for a minimum of 4 hours twice monthly, which will include onboarding around pay, benefits enrollment, policies, and an introduction to Jeffco culture. In addition, each department or school must provide adequate paid training to ensure success of each new hire. Jespa shall be included in orientation for a 30-minute presentation. Down in 4.7, I think we both agreed that maintaining qualifications is the right way to head this article. And so you struck through our language that says the district will cover the cost of education, licensures, and endorsements for employees. We re-added that, but also added when required by the district. We think that clarifies what we are asking for here. And then in 4.7.3, another one that's been, oh my goodness, back and forth, a lot of different language here. So I'm going to try and read what the article without all the strike throughs. So we added some words in here. So if an employee is required to fulfill any obligation or training to reacquire or maintain the necessary qualification, the employee will be paid their normal rate of pay. And we did add, we would love to discuss this a little bit further. We do have some we could dig into this a little deeper if you would like to. And then moving on to our proposed Article 410. This one really gets to the heart of what we prioritize and what we were trying to prioritize this year at the table. our language here that was completely struck through by the district gets to the need for staffing in our schools that's consistent and supports our students. We feel like this is a major priority for us in Jespa, and we re-added our language back to the bottom of here. Now, as I said, we came to the table initially with this being a major priority for us, if not the number one priority for us at the table this year. And the fact that it had been entirely struck through is somewhat alarming to us. We would love to know what the district's priority is regarding staffing for our kids. If the language was completely struck through, what's the priority here? And we believe we're clear that we need these things. Our students need these things in order to be successful. And we would love to understand where the district is coming from and what the district's priorities are when they struck this entire language. And that is our counter for Article 4.
Sander, I have a question because I think there might be potential confusion in the field where we talk about you had inserted promotion and demotion kind of in the transfer language.
Let me scroll back up to there.
Yeah, but then when we go down to 474, and we talk about the job qualifications, or when someone doesn't have the job qualifications, or they need to get the job qualifications like a test, or so sometimes they cannot fulfill that current position, and for a period of time they can be transferred or reassigned to a different position. And sometimes it is with demotion, and it's written in there as demotion. So I'm wondering if there's going to be confusion because those two articles now are going to contradict each other. What do you think?
Just give me a second.
That's fine.
So you're talking about 474, it's on the screen there. It allows for reassignment, which would allude to the prior article on transfer reassignment, and it gives the option for demotion right after that. So it doesn't conflict. It gives the choice for demotion when an employee is unable to have the qualification.
Right, but if you go to where you inserted demotion, any other article?
You can't do a transfer in order to promote or demote. A transfer would be different than what's under a failure to maintain qualifications.
Perfect. I just wanted to have clarity on that because we might have questions in the future. Thank you.
Yes. Tell me when.
Regarding the pulled positions, I'm assuming that you struck this because you would prefer that the pulled positions also kind of adhere to the standardized template. Is that kind of the intention behind striking this language, or tell me more about the why behind that?
So yes, also the language in 412, so we're looking at it, what we struck through is except for pooled positions and positions assigned by the district departments. So we're not saying no pooled positions.
Yep.
We're saying we want all of these other positions to be advertised the correct way. Pooled positions shouldn't be a placeholder for jobs, right? That's kind of what we're getting at. And I think our initial, when we talked about pooled positions, we're worried that it's not a transparent reflection of what's available.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think what I'm thinking through right now is how might we troubleshoot some of this, because with the pulled position, again, I just go back to like, we know on average that we have a certain amount of attrition or turnover, right? And so posting pulled positions for, say, anticipatory vacancies, we don't always know, for example, like the geographic area. And so that wouldn't necessarily be something that we would be able to follow through on if this language is accepted as is. So maybe help us think through what that could look like. That would just be, I think, a logistical thing.
Okay. I think we were trying to reflect the discussion that we had, that you would want to continue to post pooled positions. So accepting that, but in addition, so I guess help us understand, is it possible if, let's say, a paraeducator vacates a position to post it, or they're retiring at, let's say, a high school, and someone wants to move closer to home and can see that it's posted for the next year, while also having pooled positions for vacancies that pop up that you need to fill?
Yes,
with new hires maybe.
And I was just trying to wrap my head around how this impacts how pulled positions are posted without knowing some of the details that you would want included in that pulled position posting.
I think I read it as we're coming together on this one, where you understand that we still need the pooled position, and at the same time, we're not taking away another position. So to me, I'm reading it as, for positions that we know that are posted and we know all of those different things, we have the standardized template, with the understanding that we are also going to have pooled positions where we might not have that, but it's not taking away from the other. Is that accurate? Which is why you separated it out? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Matt, for our team, very similar, but I think maybe a little bit different. I think pooled positions in the camp security division are really, because it's an impact area that we don't get a lot of individuals that want to apply for. So we pool and try and interview and get people involved, and then we try and connect that person to where they live, location of positions that are open, etc. However, we do know what positions are open at what schools. When they come into that pooled position, they know at that time, here's our openings currently right now. However, there could be openings with attrition, et cetera, and people moving down the road. And if they'd like to interview and become part of the pool, a job may open up that they're not interested in the 3 that are open, but there could be one coming up sooner. Now they're already in the pooled position. Now as that job opens up, we reach out and they may become a part of that division because of the attrition that we have. So I think in our division, it is about geographical location, but we also, I think to your point, Vicki, we do like to offer up when somebody leaves, hey, there's a position open. We know somebody might want to move closer to home, or they want to go from middle school to a high school. They've gone to work with a team. That's always an option and availability. That pool just gives us a qualified group of applicants that we can get on board, that we can place into positions when they open up, or tie them into what makes the most sense, as you said, where they live, fit, principal, culture of the building, etc.
And I think with your language in 413, in addition to the positions posted for 412, that's in addition to, not in lieu of, as I read that, which is your intent.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Apparently, I'm the one that struggled to understand that, so I appreciate the conversation.
Any more questions? You want me to scroll more? Okay.
Can you go back up to changes in work location? So you inserted the original language with one or two additional words. Can you just expand on your perspective in terms of what you see as problematic and how you kind of see this as going backwards, not forwards? Because I think our intent here was to get to the root of the issue and be more objective in what this looks like. But if it didn't accomplish that, then I'd just like to know a little bit more about that.
So initially, when we were looking at this, Article 4.2, there were timelines involved. That was kind of a red flag for us when we looked at your language. There wasn't any timelines involved with that. I think that was the biggest red flag that we saw. If anyone else wants to jump in, please.
I think your proposal gives a lot of, all the authority to administrators and takes away every right of the employee. And reading the language to us, we see that Trevor could just be assigned to South at any point in time instead of North. What we have seen and why the reason we tried to negotiate Article 4 a couple years ago was kind of arbitrary. We added a lot of arbitrary and capricious language 2 years ago because of a history of arbitrary and capricious transfers. I feel you would be a better fit here, so you're moving. And it would be an intent to get that person to leave, it seemed like. I'm going to transfer you across the district. We've had so much turnover that we should be looking at ways to keep people instead of how best to, to us, whether it's your intent or not, it looks like a way that creates a lot of power over ESPs instead of working with them to try to keep them.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation.
So this one, thanks for stopping at that point. I'm looking at this with the added language of who do not have a conflict of interest. Can you give us like an example of that, or maybe be a little more specific?
It was actually added because of what we are accepting in 445, where the hiring manager makes, they should take the recommendation of the selection committee. And then in 445, if you can scroll down a little, and then I'll come back up, because I think this explains what we were thinking. We added, should the hiring manager reject the recommendation, the rejection reason will be documented. So if we're accepting that the hiring manager can make the ultimate decision, that's fine. We want the hiring manager to listen to the committee, but we've had cases in the past where the committee we believed was stacked in order to have a specific outcome. And I would specifically reference the Casey Robinson case that was going to court as one of the biggest examples of that. And we have seen that come up again, like where you have the hiring committee with kind of known people with conflicts with who's in the pool. So we just want to avoid that. And we think if the hiring manager is going to reject a decision of the hiring committee or the selection committee, it should be based on a reason that, maybe you guys inadvertently discriminated against our candidates, and I'm going to overturn your decision in order to not violate the law. So that's where our thinking was around this proposal.
With this language here, with consent from the candidate regarding the reference checks, are you concerned about any potential unintended consequences of this language? So, for example, if a hiring manager wants to reach out to, say, a candidate's previous supervisor and they don't give consent to do that, does that raise any red flags? It might for a hiring manager. So just wondering what this might look like in terms of how it's applied and how it may be helpful or hurtful.
We actually looked into this quite a bit and find that it's HR best practice to have candidates sign an actual consent for references for a lot of legal reasons, et cetera. So that might be something for our HR folks to look at as far as best practices. But there are reasons to have candidates consent to the reference check.
Yeah, I can see the benefit of both, right? Can you clarify, so where it talks about new employee orientation for a minimum of 4 hours twice monthly, is that minimum of 4 hours twice monthly over the course of how long? Is it the entire first year? Is it first 6 months?
So, okay, thank you for that question. So this is basically for how many offerings a month the district is doing these trainings. It's not necessarily 4 hours twice a month. So we could clear that up to make that, to clarify that. So we're saying for no one person is going to have to attend more twice a month, right? It would be once a month for a person for 4 hours. One orientation per person, or not per person, but you know what I'm saying.
That's what we would be expected to offer, right? Okay.
Yes.
But so if they had been hired, would they be taking that 4 hours off of the job that they just took? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it's necessarily taking time off, but it's, I think when the district did this several years ago, you just come to orientation your first week, because it was weekly, at certain points in the year. And then as hiring slowed down, the second half of the year, it was every 2 weeks, I think. And you just come here in the morning for your 4 hours and then go to your department orientation or your job the rest of the day.
What I'm hearing asking, and I could be wrong, but what I think I'm hearing is you guys asking every time there's a new employee to the department. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking a new employee to the district goes to orientation. Orientation.
I think I clarified. I want to clarify too. I think what I heard is the district would offer a district HR-based job-related training, minimum of 4 hours throughout the month for new employees to attend, sometime within the time they're hired in their new position, that they would then have access to that 1 4 hour training that would give them all the insight of the district through the HR environment. Individual training for the on-job would be up to the department. This is strictly the HR's decision to do the job-based for the district. Accurate?
For new employees to the district.
For new employees, correct.
Yeah, that's what we're getting at.
Okay.
I don't want to, excuse me, I don't want to take us too far into the weeds with that because it kind of takes us off base, but I'll just say it while we're there. But I feel some of the information that it will be in the orientation should be provided during the hiring process. In other words, if you're thinking about working at Jeffco because you have you're going to get an offer, or you're in that part of the application process or the hiring process, I find a lot of my guys or a lot of my people in maintenance don't even know there's an association that goes along with their pay and most everything their career is going to be about, really, a reflecting to the contract. So, orientation is great for new employees to come to, but I would hate for them to be surprised after they decided to take the job and possibly leave another job to realize that their pay will be negotiated and they also have representation. Does that make sense? I might have took that in a weird circle.
Yes, and typically, and maybe I'm wrong about this, they've already been offered a position and have accepted a position before that takes place. The way
Correct.
this is written, correct? Am I thinking about that?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of problems with the lack of onboarding. People
there's a
find out
need
their prorated pay. People find out there's para, or or that there's legal requirements. This is a public employer. All these things that we hear about in that first onboarding time that could have been answered, that now we put all this time into them, but they've quit because they didn't realize what they were walking into.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's a strong interest here to enhance what onboarding looks like, and we'll take that into consideration too around what are the different scenarios and how does that play out for an employee who has not yet accepted a position to have all the information they need to be able to make an informed decision. But then once they've made their decision and choose to be a part of our team, how do we then orient them to all the things they need to know about Jeffco, right?
Yes, it's a huge cultural piece too, I think, that we see. The other big interest is just what we've heard from the departments, that all of this work that used to be done centrally has been offloaded onto the departments and causes a lot of maybe headache that they're not equipped to take on with onboarding just on HR processes.
Okay.
I think in this section with regards to maintaining qualifications, so we're talking about in this section employees and continuing in their positions that require different credentials, et cetera. And we know that happens, maybe not consistently across the district, but we're not talking about in order to maintain minimum qualifications for the job. Or are we?
There is some maintenance of qualifications. So we're trying to capture what is current practice in many places, which is not consistent, like you said, but maintaining qualifications. I think specifically one of the big things that we're thinking about is the maintenance of your CDL. So just so we're being clear, a lot of our interest here is different applications of the rules here in order to maintain your CDL, your physicals, et cetera. It seems that some people get paid time to go do their physicals. Some people don't. We want to clarify that they should be on paid time. John's got an electrician's license, so maybe John and Trevor could speak a little to what happens, if it helps.
Yeah, in order to maintain our license, we have to get a certain amount of PDUs. So thankfully, right now it's working out for us to get the training we need. But the CDL side of things, these guys out of nowhere, the way I understand it, could be asked to, get their neck measured or something, or I think that's a normal thing. And then from there, you end up having to do a CPAP test and all these other things that you end up paying out of pocket for. So I guess as we all get older or something to that effect, we could end up having a sleep disorder or one of those, and next thing you know, we paid $800 to go sleep at the doctor's office and check it out. But it's not part of that is not captured. Jeffco's not paying for that at this point. So there's certain things like that we're interested in talking about.
Yeah, and I can speak to it from doing our it's yearly or biannually, depending on where you sit on your CDL license. Some people have to go every year. Some people have to go every 2 years to renew their CDOT physical, depending on if you have a CPAP or not. But sadly, that I work for another company to pay my bills. The other company I work for pays me for my time to go do my CDOT physical, which can take anywhere from an hour to 5 hours, depending on where we go. We currently use Concentra, and I've known many drivers that have gone on their middays, sat there for 3 to 5 hours and not gotten in because they don't do appointments. So they have to leave, come back to work, and try and do it again the next day or the next day. Sometimes it takes them a month to get this done, and they're sitting there on their time off trying to get this done, and they're wasting their money and their time. So there's twofold there that we can fix that problem of getting appointments, but that's another road to go down. But my point is they should be paid for their time to be sitting there to get that. Now, Jeffco does pay for the physical. They do that, so that's a good step. But the fact that they're not getting paid for their time to go do something that's required for their job seems wrong. When every other company, including trucking companies, busing companies, my charter company that I work for, all pay you for your time to go take this physical. So, and hopefully maybe if Jeffco's paying for it, they'd find a way to streamline it that we could get in and get out, since they might have a stake in it. So that's the issue we're having with the CDOT physical aspect of it. The whole CPAP thing is a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down with how much we pay, how much we pay to deal with that mess. So, and that's part of CDOT and all that. So that's that in a nutshell.
And it actually is paid for. The time to go down there and do the physical is paid for other employees that require a CDL that are outside of the transportation department. So I just want to note that it is inequitable. It's just bus drivers that aren't paid for their time to do that.
Yeah, I think I can comment a little bit on 410. I think there are a lot of unknowns with what has been proposed here that we'll need to take some time to consider, but I heard you loud and clear that this is a big priority for you. So we'll go back and study this even further than we did the first time. I think initially our thoughts outside of just the potential cost implications is that, there's a need for us to be flexible to adapt and change to different conditions. Looking at specifically, for example, where it talks about the paraprofessional job duties must directly support students and teachers, so on and so forth. And, there are instances that come up during the school day where it truly can be an all hands on deck situation. And that's what's necessary to kind of ensure the safe operations of a school. Right. And so for us, that language would limit our ability to be flexible. And flexibility is something that I think we're going to need to have in schools. That's just our reality. But with that said, I heard what you said in terms of this gets to the heart of what you truly want. So we'll go back and spend some more time on this. I don't know
Matt.
if anyone else wants to add.
Yeah, and for that, it's not just a priority for us here at the table or the people watching. It's a priority for our children, for our students, for their needs, to fulfill their IEPs, which are legal documents. And so we need to prioritize our students. It's not just like, oh, I want this or John wants that. It's our children need this, and those IEPs need to be fulfilled.
Yeah, don't hear me wrong. I mean, students are at the forefront of these discussions, but just speaking specifically to the people who sit across from the table, that's the reference around the U. But absolutely, I agree. Prioritizing our student needs is of utmost importance. So thank you for that comment.
I would ask you, as you look at this, to look at what the practice currently is, because this part of this is that the resource guide does not accurately capture what principals do. And, we're asking for more paraprofessionals, but the funding for paraprofessionals in the resource guide is well below what a reasonable principal staffs. So that's a big part of this, is what do we currently have in practice that should be funded appropriately and written appropriately, so that parapros and secretaries aren't bearing the disposability factor. I don't know how to say it. If they're not in there and protected, they become the most disposable people in the school. And that says a lot about our culture and values of what we value. We don't intend to limit anything. So I just want you to know that, paraprofessionals that have to hop in, all hands on deck, that's what they do. And that does support students and teachers. It's really the interest here around that comment is that you're not displacing secretaries with paraprofessionals in order to avoid paying, because on the other end, you're also displacing secretaries with administrators. So there's just odd practices in place that don't make sense. And we need to streamline and make it work the best for students.
Yeah, no, I think you make a good recommendation. What I heard you say is, we should take some time to understand what current practice looks like, what those current conditions are, before responding back to 410 the way we did the first time.
Any more questions?
Okay, so we want to propose taking a break. We'll work on Article 6 counter. You'll take into consideration our compensation offer. How much time do we think we need? 30 minutes to start?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, all right, we'll be back in 30 minutes.
Okay, we're back from a break caucusing. Appreciate you allowing us the time to have conversation about our Article 6 counter, as well as we'd like to have some additional conversation around Article 4. We also understand that we'll have the continuation of the compensation proposal that Matt presented earlier, probably Tuesday, I'm hopeful, but that's obviously your call. So we'd like to jump right in, and I think we are really getting pretty close on Article 6. So in talking about it, and I'm going to be looking at the screen, Matt's going to drive, and thanks, he's even magnifying it for these old eyes, which is a good thing. So. All right, so looking at this, we did clean up a little bit of language just for confusion purposes. And I know there was some wondering about the Step 8 piece. And really where we're at this point today is saying, yes, we want to increase from Step 4 to Step 6 with the ability for hiring managers to bring folks in. Also knowing not to exceed, and we had originally put in a Step 8, but there is a Step 8 for preschool. And since we haven't closed any gaps on the schedule, we have Step 11 for all the others. So essentially what we're trying to do is make it clear that there is that possibility to move up to at least Step 8 for preschool. And there may be, I think, a couple other positions in there, but I think preschool was the question. And then up to 11, which takes a person through those 3-step gap that's currently in the schedule. 6.1.2, the experience break in service, I think we pretty much have agreed to. The wage piece was clarification that it's a wage schedule and not a salary schedule. Materially similar skills, certainly I don't think there's any question about that. And then relevant previous experience that would be beneficial to their new position. So the 617, 618, 619, those are all the ones that I think were highlighted because the question pieces with regards to comp that we would need to return to later. Going to 621, the district must make a good faith effort to recruit, hire, and retain employees for all positions. We completely agree. And the district shall prioritize hiring and seek to avoid the use of contract or outsourced services unless there is a compelling need to contract or outsource services to maintain the operations of the district in accordance with Section 2253. I mean, there's an alignment piece there. The district will meet with Jespa to discuss potential solutions to address job positions that have a high vacancy rate. And that's where we ended it, and including those that market analysis, job titles, et cetera. So I think our point here is, in attaching a percentage, it doesn't always work that easily, but we do know where our high vacancy rates are. And I think we talked a little bit about it, that if you have a very small job category, job group, if you only have 10 employees, just because you have one vacancy doesn't mean that there's a crisis. But what we're saying is, we know where the high vacancy rates are. We've identified those with transportation, paraeducators, et cetera. And we are always willing to sit down and talk about potential solutions. And I think we have done that to a certain degree, but we just have to do more to collaborate on working on the problem-solving side of this. And again, it may include market analysis for job titles, wage adjustments, and other viable solutions subject to budgetary constraints and the operational needs of the district. And we did scratch through and other solutions mutually agreed upon. Not sure really what that means. I mean, the idea is to problem solve, and that's what we hope to be able to do with you. Moving right along into 621, and Xander, I agree with you. Sometimes we have so many strike-throughs, we don't even know where the thing starts and ends. That if Jespa or department believes a position needs to be reclassified, they can submit. That's a language that I think we talked about before, and I don't think there was any real qualms about it. So I think we can keep moving. Premium pay. Talked about the premium pay. Originally, there's the language, transportation, mechanics, facility maintenance, etc. We are in agreement with custodial services employees who are required to remove snow at a time, which is different from their regularly scheduled work time at their facility, who will also earn, and that's, I think, a clarification. So I think we're all on the same page as far as that particular piece. And then moving right along to higher classification. Did a little bit of work on this. An employee who works in a higher classification will be paid at a rate commensurate with the higher grade, beginning with the first full day and continuing for the duration of the assignment. And I think we've already kind of had this conversation, and I don't believe there's any issues there. And then I think we scroll down. And then we got to the payroll pieces. And again, the strike through that is there from ours and yours wasn't that there isn't work to be done on this. It's just being done in other areas. So I think we're pretty close on this article. So certainly would welcome any questions you may have. And we can scroll through it slowly and do the slow scroll. And I'm not sure if I missed anything from our team or not going through this.
So just a question on 6-2, and we had asked to add the word recent classification to definitions. Did you come up with any wording on what that definition would look like?
No.
Can you scroll down just a little further in that whole 6-2? Yes, thank you. I was trying to gauge whether, with the language you all changed and what's here, whether it explained enough to not need a definition, but I think it still does, so we can maybe take a stab at that when we counter. Yeah, on reclassification. But do we all agree that is a reclassification a change in pay grade to you?
It typically, a review of a classification or a request for reclassification may, but it doesn't always end up. I mean, you know, when we go through the PMC process and reclassify or request for reclassify, sometimes it comes out, and even though I may think that my particular job should be reclassified based upon the work, once it's done, gone through the PMC process, it doesn't always flesh out that way. So, but normally a reclassification would include a pay grade change as well. I think we also need to be really careful too, because sometimes, and I think I may have mentioned this before, in the reclassification process, because jobs oftentimes do evolve and change, We also don't want to go through a reclassification process that then, looking at market comparisons, whatever, that all of a sudden, yeah, this job is completely wrong with its reclassification. It needs to be reclassified to lower pay grade. And then that's not any sort of a thing that happens on a regular basis, but we want to make sure that we're not, reclassifying positions that end up in the position being a demotion. But generally speaking, Vicki, to answer your question, most positions that are approved for reclassification would likely end up at a higher pay grade. There's always an exception. I just want to make that clear.
I think you can keep going. Okay. Keep going. All right, thank you. I don't think we have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And then what we thought we'd do is move to the next article and just have some additional conversation. Yep. The right one. Someday everything will be wireless, and Drew will be a happy person. Okay, so we thought we'd pull up your article just in having some conversation because we haven't had a chance to really do or make any counters. And looking at 411, and I guess I could probably look at it even on my own computer since I have it. I think we have, generally speaking, 411, we're on the same page. And we certainly want to do a better job promoting positions and making positions more attractive. Scroll a little more. 412. I think one of the things that we're struggling with, but I think the clarification piece that you had in 414 was we still need to be able to post positions as pools because of the need to get out ahead of things. But we also recognize the need to have specificity to the posting so that people know where these jobs are so that they can apply and be a part of it. So I don't think we have any real bone of contention for how this is written. Our parentheses, except for pool positions and other postings signed by district departments, was just for our clarification purposes. But I think with your language, you've identified in 414 that we're not saying we can't do pool position postings for high turnover, high volume positions, but they would be in addition to, not in lieu of. And I think that's the clarifying point. We have a lot of work to do yet on 4.2. Knowing that you are requesting a revert back to the original language, and that's something we haven't had a chance really to contemplate, because I think we have some common interests, but I think we also want to be able to make this practical in our approach and how we do this, and being respectful of our support staff employees. The application process, I think generally speaking, we are in good shape there. If we want to scroll down just a little bit more with the conflict of interest piece, we understand where you're coming from. We're going to need a little more time in the selection process to have some conversation around, will the measured by years of service be specific to years of service in Jeffco, or is it relevant experience measured by years of service any place a person comes from? So I think one of the things we have difficulty with is what does really count for a year of experience or year of service. Two very different things. And so just some clarification around that we'll want to talk about. And I think, one of the things that you brought up, and I kind of piqued my interest, was the comment, Vicki, you made about with consent from the candidate on the reference check piece. Certainly, we like to have that, but it's not always possible. And in a hiring process, oftentimes we're contacting previous supervisors in particular, because we want to know what the track record is for an employee. So it's not always something, and the other question really is if a candidate doesn't give consent to contact a previous supervisor, is that an automatic disqualifier? Because we do want to have that contact with previous supervisors if at all possible. It's not always possible because it may have been years ago. The person may not be around anymore, may not be able to get in touch with them. They may be retired, etc. But I think the challenge is that it's not always something that a applicant will want to consent to. And again, for us, does that make it okay? Well, if you're not going to provide us with your most recent supervisor, then we simply can't hire you, because we need to know what your employment history looks like. So that's something we'll talk a little bit more about. Yeah, and we get certainly understand your language with regards to the hiring manager. I think your point is they need to have a bona fide reason for rejecting the recommendation, which also speaks to that conflict of interest that you had up above. And certainly we don't want hiring managers to reject recommendations unless they have a legitimate reason. So we'll come back to that with some probably maybe another question or two. I think the compelling reasons, compelling differences, we like that word. We're grateful that you have inserted that. And also likewise with regards to the 90-day piece, gives us a little more latitude. Full disclosure here, we spent a fair amount of time talking with Jen Jones about the request for the orientation, and we hear you, and we don't disagree that orientation for new employees is vitally important. And having a better person, and several of us have worked in other districts, one of the things that I think we've lost a little bit, and maybe it's since we haven't done the in-person orientation, is we've lost that personal touch. And that's really a hard thing to have in a really big district like ours. And this is not a negative, but it could be perceived as such. We don't want people to feel like they're just a name and a number in the system. And I believe that. and having worked other places, I know that can happen, but it's more difficult in a large district like ours. Having said that, in our conversation with Jen Jones, we are talking about what can this look like? What is the reality of this? Is it 90 minutes? Is it what's the sweet spot? And we know your request, the 4 hours offered a couple times a month, et cetera. We want to be able to put together a counter that we know we can commit to. But we realize the importance and the value of this, and we are greatly appreciative of the fact that you have made this as a request, because we feel the same way, even though we live in a automated electronic world where everything, you can just go into a computer and push a few buttons and you're supposed to have all the information, all the answers. I think, as you have stated, there is a cultural element to this that is vitally important in how we personalize the work that we're doing. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are going to be working on this with our HR department, and we'll have at least maybe a little bit of a framework to work from and a commitment for the future. And I think when we return on Tuesday, we'll be ready to talk about in more detail the maintaining of the qualifications in this piece and what's required. We have such a variety of employees and different requirements, et cetera. We don't want to leave people out in this process, yet we also want to make sure that we're accounting for what this might include and the total expenditure. So it's going to take a little bit of time, and I'm not sure we'll have it all ready by Tuesday, but at least be able to provide a little better response. Yeah, and on the ratio piece, obviously, we hear you, and I'm going to let anyone from our team chime in on this. There are certain parts of this, and I'm just going to throw out the example for special ed, and Jessica, you and Matt certainly kick me or chime in or shut me down or whatever we need to do. Some of the pieces of what you've written, absolutely. This is absolute interest of ours. In 410.2, staffing to meet IEPs in accordance with the district, federal, state requirements and to adequately meet student needs. That slam dunk. That's for us, that's a no-brainer. That's a given. If it needs to be in language, it's more of a interest or a position statement, which we're fine with. And likewise, there's down below, there's a little bit more information with regards to custodial. And for like 410.6, custodial ratios must consider this. Yep. And they do. We don't disagree with that. They do already. And we take that into consideration to be able to get the work done. So what we don't see maybe in these two pieces is it being quantified, but we don't also think that it needs to be quantified versus this is a commitment we're making. There are some of the other pieces of this that, not to not speak about certain areas, but there's a cost element as we've talked about with some of these, and we're going to need a little bit of time to flesh out where we may be able to go and some of the things we may be able to agree to, but it's a pretty big endeavor to look at this, and again, not to dwell on the dollar figures, but the proposal with regards to pairs, that's a huge lift. Certainly, I think what we've heard from you is your interest in the whole staffing ratios piece is ideal state. Okay, this would be the ideal state in being able to have health assistance for 8 hours a day, bell to bell, whatever it might be. That's the ideal state. And I think, in an ideal world, it would be wave the magic wand and make it all happen. And, we'd all feel really great about things. But we've got some challenges and certainly can't do everything at once. So just wanted to recognize the work that you've done on that, and we will be coming back with some additional information, hopefully Tuesday, and if not, it'll be the following session. So I'm not sure if we've got questions or anything any of our team would like to add to the conversation. I don't want to hog the mic here, so. Good. Not sure if we want to take a break or a caucus and have you take a look at 6 and see maybe we can get close to TA today on 6. Or if not, if you don't believe you're ready, we don't want to pressure you either. And if not, we can adjourn for the day and come back on Tuesday. Unless there's something else for the good of the cause we need to take care of today.
Can we take a 5-minute caucus? Just hallway caucus. We'll be right back. Okay, we've taken a few minutes to ponder Article 6. Thank you for your proposal, your counter proposal. We recognize that we're pretty close. I think what we need to continue to talk about is really 611 and some of the other parts of 6 that go with compensation. And just want to be clear that the wage schedule that we proposed with the closed gaps is something that we're interested in continuing to discuss. And it wasn't really in your counter proposal today. You referenced it when you referenced our proposal. But we would like to come back Tuesday and talk more about wage schedule. And given our wage schedule discussions, that would impact how we talk about placement when you come in with experience and potentially other references to steps in this article. So we don't want to get at the point where we have a TA that has to be reopened. So just kind of want to leave it hanging out there in suspense. So with that, I think we would propose to adjourn just a bit early, about an hour early, so that we could potentially go back and get to work a little bit further on our financial counter and let you all get to work on whatever you need to do.
Okay. And so we're scheduled Tuesday evening, it looks like from 4 to 8. Can we just talk through the agenda so that we're prepared? And then while we're doing that, just wanted to thank the people who were able to attend today and kind of echo your sentiments around. We recognize that during the day it's hard for people to participate or be on the live stream, so on and so forth. But we really appreciate you taking time on a Friday during the day to meet with us and hear our proposal. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so agenda for Tuesday, we'll have a financial counter. We can probably do some work on 6. And you all have 4.
And a response 4. Yep. Okay.
And we'll talk more about wage schedule with our financial counter. We did have a mutual grievance item kind of out there too. I don't know if you want to continue that discussion, but we could add that on Tuesday night. The grievance procedure.
Yeah, it seems like we might have a full agenda, but we could put it on there, and if we get to it,
Okay.
if there's sufficient time to really dive into it, sure.
Yeah. And if we can figure out a time to meet on the grievance issue that could result in bargaining, then maybe we could have that meeting next week at some point and then put the grievance issue on the agenda for the following session.
Sounds great. Okay, so I think we are ready to adjourn for the day. Drew, thank you so much for supporting all of our efforts. And thanks everyone for being here. See you Tuesday.